What is up, Waffle Gang? My name is Mark, and today we're covering some more r/am I the butthole. If you'd like to skip the initial waffle, timestamps are in the description and along the timeline below, but if you are new here, please consider hitting that like, that subscribe, and maybe that notification bell too. Oh, I almost ran out of breath on that one. Yesterday we had one new supporter over on YouTube, Manu S. Thank you so much for your support. It really does mean the world to me. And for everyone for taking the time to come here and, get involved in the channel. It really is just absolutely amazing of you. Thank you so much. And with that being said, let's just crack on with today's stories. Much love, guys. Our first story comes from Back Pay Up. Am I the arsehole for enforcing that my son uses his college fund to pay back his child support? All names are fake. My wife and I have 2 kids. Our oldest is Josh. He just started his 2nd year in college. Full disclosure, I'm not Josh's biological dad, but I've been married to his mum since he was 8. He's my son in all but blood. Josh has a full ride scholarship at his college. His mum and I are very proud, and he has ambitions for law school after graduation. A few months ago, we were contacted by Tina, a girl who claimed to have had a baby boy with Josh. The baby is a little under 18 months old. Tina said Josh ghosted her and blocked her on all platforms. She'd been trying to get back in touch with him, but when that didn't work, began to look for his parents to contact. She finally found us and begged us to get Josh to talk with her. We were skeptical at first. He said he knew the girl, but denied the baby. We insisted on a paternity test, 2 of them, and they were positive. Tina has gone through the courts and now is pushing for back child support for the baby. Josh is panicking. He doesn't have much income or savings other than a college fund his mum and I have been paying into. He wanted to use that money for his first apartment and for law school. My wife wants to help him pay. The payments aren't much now and we could afford to, but I'm against it. We, wife and I, agreed that our kids would be responsible for themselves once they moved out. We'd help them if they needed it, but only if it was reasonable. To me, paying his child support for a baby he tried to abandon is unreasonable. He has put the money in his fund, he just doesn't want to use it. Josh is afraid of not being able to afford law school without big loans in the future. And to that I say though, should have thought of that before bringing a child into the world. My wife thinks I'm unfairly punishing him, and paying the support now will be investing in both the baby and Josh's future. I have no interest in taking care of an infant again that late in life. I'm fine with being a grandpa, but not a stand-in dad while Josh gets off scot-free. He needs to step up and take care of his kid. Edited to add, I suddenly have a flood of responses to read. I can't find the info posts I meant to reply to, so I'll address some questions here. Tina, according to her, tried to get in contact with Josh while she was pregnant. He denied the baby was his and ignored her. They weren't dating. She attends community college, not his university. She has evidence of multiple attempts to contact him both before and after the baby was born. I don't know about protection being used. I'd hope they were careful and this was just an accident, but I'm not going to ask about the details of my son's sex life. The deed is done, the baby exists, he needs to step up and be a dad. Wow, what good parents. It's rare to see on these kinds of posts, but for them to turn around and defend this girl right away and say, look, you need to have a paternity test, and if it's yours, you need to step up and look after this child. And absolutely right, you ghosted this girl and left her on her own. She was probably petrified being pregnant and on her own after you ghosted her. Not that it matters, but it would be interesting to know a bit more about sort of Josh's and this girl's relationship after, before it all happened, before he left. Did he just ghost her because she was pregnant? Because that makes it even worse. Not that the situation isn't really bad anyway, but you know what I mean. Let's have a look at some of the comments to see what they say. Parking Sense says, not the arsehole, thank you for standing up for the girl and the baby. Josh needs to understand that actions have consequences. Webby Vanderquack says, not the arsehole, and quotes, he has the money in his fund, just doesn't want to use it. Should have thought of that before bringing a child into the world. And then says, I agree, law school would be great, but he doesn't have that luxury. If he's able to get a college degree and also has money to support a child, he's doing well enough. And how many mothers have to give up dreams of law school to look after a baby? Catler says, not the arsehole, and I agree with you on every point. Josh not only created this mess, but he made it worse by actively avoiding Tina and forcing her to get you/your wife the courts involved. If you and your wife pay his child support for him, just so his future stays pristine, then you're enabling his recklessness. I mean, what about Tina's future and the plans she had that have now been put aside because she became a mum? She doesn't get to continue her life as though nothing has changed, and neither should Josh. If your wife wants to help in some way, she can go shopping for her grandchild, maybe buy clothes or toys or other things that would help Tina out. But the actual child support is Josh's responsibility to figure out. And if that means he takes money out of his college fund and/or gets a job to meet his obligations, then so be it. And Josie Wales says, not the arsehole, your wife should be way more concerned about Josh's apparent lack of character. Taking responsibility for your actions is not a punishment, it's just life. Now, what would you do in this situation if one of your children's partners came up to you and said they were pregnant and they've had a child and they were ghosted earlier on? How would you handle that? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to vote on that poll in the description for story 1. And our next story is from Mediocre Activity. Am I the arsehole for not cuddling my son? I know this sounds bad, but hear me out. Ever since I, female 37, was 5, I generally hated physical contact with most other people. I refused to hug or kiss my parents, didn't hold hands with family/friends, etc., hate maintaining eye contact, and the like. I think my parents were bothered about it as I grew up, but just accepted it, and it really wasn't an issue. I've always hated the custom of hugging friends when we met up, and I detest cheek kissing. I know this is weird, but it makes me physically uncomfortable, but I only have a small circle of close friends who have known me forever, and it's not been an issue. I had a son when I was 27 and obviously love him thoroughly, and as a baby he had plenty of cuddles, etc. But since he was a toddler, I haven't really had much physical contact with him. I find it uncomfortable, don't know how else to put it. I have a revulsion. For the most part, I didn't think he was bothered, he has plenty of attention. I'm just not cuddly with him. We have private handshakes, fist bumps, etc. But the other week he told me it bothered him that all the rest of the family/his stepdad cuddles him, but that I don't. I tried to explain it, but I'm not sure as a 10-year-old he could understand. I feel rotten about it, but it's not just him. It's evidently how I'm wired. But here's where I may be the arsehole. With my partner, I am always snuggled up. We're very close physically, and I always have been with sexual partners. But to me, physical contact is only for one person, the one I am with. Anyone other than that, and it just feels wrong, awkward, horrible to me. I'm wondering whether I shouldn't show so much physical affection in front of my son. My mum thinks I'm the arsehole for this. I should either hug my son as much as my partner or keep physical contact with my partner strictly private, and that I should just get over it and put up with a feeling uncomfortable hugging my son because my feelings don't count when it comes to that kind of situation. Edit, I don't starve my son of physical contact. He often lies with his legs over me. I tickle him, we have secret handshakes, I hug him. I also explain my feelings to him and we discuss his feelings. I just don't feel comfortable cuddled up face to face with him. Damn, now as a cuddly person, this is really difficult because obviously I'm not sure how that person really feels, how they feel about cuddling. But like from looking at it from the outside and reading this story, the fact that they're showing physical contact with their partner, like I can, what I've got pictured in my head is like the living room setting, sofa, two people cuddling and quite close together while the son is sitting there looking at these two people cuddling and feeling really shitty about it. That is just the first thing that comes to my head. And, you know, I can see why the son would feel absolutely awful in that situation. And again, I'm not sure if it's fair to say, like, you are a parent. You know your son needs some physical contact to bond with you, and you're just not doing it. Surely sacrifices have to be made somewhere. And again, I might be totally wrong in saying that. I'm interested to know the comments in this one, so let's head down there to see what they say. E. Forbes says, I'm reluctant to give a judgment, but as a daughter of a mother who, like you, hates to be touched, we noticed and it hurts. I spent most of my childhood touch-starved. Please seek help before you damage your son further. At this point, I have to go with you're the arsehole. It could have been a no one's an arsehole here, but your comments have tipped it over. Stoner Forge Mystique says, you need therapy, not a Reddit thread. Cuddles aren't repulsive for someone you chose to be sexual with, but are for the child that came out of you. Like, how am I not supposed to be heartbroken for that little boy? You're the arsehole because as soon as you realise you won't be able to give your son love and warmth, you should have spoke to a professional. Fuck, you should have addressed this before having a kid. I grew up in a family that didn't show affection, and 39 years later, the therapy never ends. Throwaway says, you're the arsehole, your son's feelings matters more than yours. Most kids require lots of hugs and cuddles. By age 10 they've usually outgrown it, but seeing you with your partner cuddling after you haven't been affectionate like that with them for years would hurt any kid's feelings. Don't pass your issues onto your kids. Lauren says, you snuggle your partner in front of your child whom you refuse to cuddle. You're the arsehole. Your child who cannot comprehend your revulsion to cuddles just sees his mum cuddling her partner, but not him. Webby Vanderquack says, "You're the arsehole. This is absolutely a problem you need to actively solve, because it's going to hurt your son, not just now, but in the long run." And quotes, "My feelings don't count," and then says, "They do, but as a parent you need to make some sacrifices for the well-being of your child. You brought this kid into the world, and your job is just not to keep him alive, but to love him, and make sure he knows he's loved. To see you happily snuggled up with your partner when you won't touch him is going to make him feel like he's the problem." And quotes again, "I'm wondering whether I shouldn't show him much physical affection in front of my son." And then says, "That's not the issue. It's normal for children to see their parents showing affection to their partners. What's not normal is for them to be excluded from physical affection. Please, please address this." Now, what do you guys think of this situation? How do you think OP should handle it going forward? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to vote on that poll in the description for story 2. And our next story is called, "Am I the arsehole for not paying my engagement photographer?" Throwaway. My partner and I just had our engagement photos taken, safely with precautions. The photographer was recommended to us by a friend whose photos impressed us, so we contacted the photographer, paid their deposit and hired them for the day, which was one day before yesterday. My partner and I chose a location that meant a great deal to us. It's easy to access but somewhat remote, as to avoid other people in our shots or outside influence in our photos. My partner and I arrived on time at the location ready to shoot. There was nothing we needed to do to get ready. The photographer was half an hour late before they called us to let us know that they were late, and they were a further hour late. When the photographer arrived, they had their young child as well. They didn't tell us they'd be bringing a child with them when we booked, nor did they tell us they called us to say they'd be late. They explained that their childcare fell through and they couldn't find a replacement, but we were their only appointment for the day, so it wasn't an issue on their end. It took nearly half an hour for the photographer to set up their equipment. Mind you, at this point we're supposed to begin an hour before, and figured we'd not be finishing anytime soon. My partner had to cancel our plans for after the shoot, upsetting many people and causing disappointment. The attitude was also incredibly brusque and abrupt. They were also kind of pushy and bossy. When the photographer finally started shooting, their child began acting out and they had to stop every few minutes to parent the child. It sort of ruined the afternoon for us, because when the photographer wasn't paying attention, my partner and I were trying to keep the child from getting hurt. The photographer took an hour's worth of photos and we all departed. On the way home, I told my partner I wasn't paying for any of it because the photographer was stopping every few moments to watch the child. The child causes massive disruptions, and how the photographer was late and had a negative attitude. The morning the photographer emailed us the photos they'd taken, and despite everything, the photos were actually really good. That said, I told the photographer that we wouldn't be using the photos or paying her because of everything I listed above. The photographer started blowing up my phone with nasty texts. When they threatened a lawsuit, I blocked them. My partner deleted the photos that had been emailed to us because we didn't want them. Our friend who recommended the photographer to us said she was surprised because the photographer had been great for her and her fiance. She said we suck because we let the photographer do all the work for nothing. I mean, we did pay the deposit. Non-refundable. Are we the arsehole for refusing to pay? ETA, I'm reading all the comments and I hear everyone. I would like to add that my contract with this person said I would receive 300 photos, which I did not. That being said, I'm going to contact the photographer and offer to pay for the 100 photos delivered. I didn't receive what was agreed upon in totality, but I am ready to do the right thing. Now again, this one's going to verge from a "you're the arsehole" to a "everyone sucks" here. Mainly because, you know, you let this person do all the work, although you were unhappy with them from the very start. You could have stopped that photo shoot at any point and said, "Look, I'm not happy with this. We'll have to try this another time, or I'm going to find another photographer." But you let them go all the way through. You let them do the post afterwards, so you let them edit all the photos to touch them up and then send them to you, and then you said you wasn't happy. That makes you the arsehole in my opinion. But also, the photographer was very unprofessional to bring their child along when they knew they were giving a professional service. And yes, I know we're in troubled times at the moment with COVID and stuff, and they might have childcare issues, but at the same time, that's not OP's fault. That's not OP's fault that they had to bring their child with them, and they was, you know, I can imagine being upset that you're having to take care of someone's kid when you've paid them to be here, you know. So I'm going to go with an "everyone sucks" here just because of that, really. But let's have a look at some of the comments below to see what they say. Lola Caramichael says, "You're the arsehole. The photographer may have been unprofessional, but they performed the service and provided you with, as you admit here, a good product. I think it would have been more appropriate if you had gone ahead and cancelled when they called saying they were running an hour late. I don't think I would have waited around that long." Webby Vanderquack says everyone sucks here. They were unprofessional, but they did the job and took nice photos. That's what you were paying for, not a pleasant afternoon. And if you were angry about the lateness and the photographer's unprofessional manner, you should have made that clear at the time, not let them do the job and say, by the way, we're not paying you. OK Flyboy says, you're the arsehole. You hired a photographer to take engagement photos. She did. You even said they were good. Services rendered. Pay the woman. However, if she was unprofessional in how she managed an emergency situation on her end, feel free to leave a bad review. Decline to recommend her to others, but you should still pay her. Yeah, and I should probably clear up for the initial question. I just totally forgot about the initial question about not paying. You should absolutely pay in the scenario. And Tahitian Kitty says, I get that she ruined the whole photo shoot experience with her unprofessionalism. I also understand that you felt trapped in that situation. You committed and don't want to bail out last minute. But you knew right after the photo shoot that you wouldn't pay her. You should have told her right then, even through emails or text. Instead, you let her do all the editing just for you to announce you wouldn't pay her. That's quite an arsehole move. Also, she can't be sure you deleted the pictures on her end. You could have scammed her to get almost free photos. Just pay her and leave a bad review. I'll vote everyone sucks here. And just to clear that up, and it's just in case someone doesn't know. You know, I'm just putting this out there. I'm not talking down to you or anything like that. But, you know, in photography, I have to go into photography shoots quite often with my work. Here I go again. And, you know, once they've taken the photos of the product, it's not just like, pull them out the camera, there you go, mate, jog on. It's, they have to put them in Photoshop, edit them, crop them down, change the lighting on them sometimes, crop stuff out of the photos, like if you want a tree removed out of the background and all that kind of thing. You know, it can all be done in post. And that's what they let this person go through. They let this person do all this stuff to, you know, 100 photos and then said, nah, we don't want them anymore. So yeah, I can see why it's a big arsehole move. But what do you guys think of this situation? How would you have dealt with it? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to vote on that poll in the description for story 3. And our next story is from Caught Weird. Am I the arsehole for falsifying my son's DNA test? Long story. My twin brother was a hot mess and died of a drug overdose in 2009. His girlfriend announced she was pregnant and gave birth in the back of an abandoned bus. Obviously she lost custody. I was next of kin, so I adopted my nephew, although we refer to each other as father/son, and he is doted by everyone. My son was diagnosed with a rare form of diabetes insipidus, apologies if I got that wrong, last year, which his doctor told him is genetic. I have no one with that in my family. I mentioned it was probably from his mother's side. That sparked an interest in learning about his family tree. He asked for a 23andMe DNA test, which I gladly bought him, knowing it would show people from our side of the family. Nothing shocking. Well, I was shocked. When his results were ready, I viewed them before he did. He is not blood related. He is basically Russian and Ashkenazi. Again, apologies if I got that name wrong. On the parental side, and it shows German and English on my side. It made sense. He looks nothing like me or his birth mum. This doesn't change anything, but it absolutely destroy him to find out. He was wishing that there would only be one family member with their shit together, and maybe give him a sense of history. My kid wanted to see the results himself, so I showed him mine pretending it was his. He thought it was the coolest thing ever. I feel guilty beyond belief. He and I always have a transparent relationship, and I am deceiving him. God, I came into this one ready to be really angry, but, you know, I'm reading OP, and you can almost sense the pain in what he's doing by deceiving his son. You know, but you got to say, as we've seen multiple times on here before, if you're not honest with these kind of things up front, they do hurt a lot more down in the future, sort of thing. So I hate to say it, but you would be the arsehole if you didn't tell him ASAP. I think it needs to get out there, otherwise it will cause trouble further down the line. But let's have a look at the comments below to see what they say. Hedonia B says, you're the arsehole if you don't tell him, and the longer you keep it from him, the more upset he will be likely. How you tell him is important. I would listen to anyone who's had to tell their kid they're adopted and see how they reacted. I would think an important thing is that you don't have to donate genetic material to be a dad. You already weren't his DNA donor, but you are his father. As long as you don't want to let anything change that, it cannot be changed. Even if your son takes some time to learn what his family actually is. Don't fear your son. Love transcends these things, as long as you don't choke it with your own fears. In my opinion only. Again, see if anyone's been through something similar pops up. Remember says you would be the arsehole if you keep this up. If you have the adoption legally completed and totally locked down, find the time to tell him. He's your kid no matter what these tests say. You get an understandable sec to collect yourself after you are thrown for a loop, but get the situation resolved. The lie will eat you. Good luck and thanks for caring for this little person. Melkor himself says, not the arsehole. The context of your post suggests your brother's girlfriend cheated on him and got pregnant with the other guy. I can't blame you for making that decision when you're put on the spot and didn't have time to process it. His mother is definitely the arsehole, but simultaneously you need to find a way to delicately approach this. Sooner or later, the truth will emerge. And By Snowflake says, I've rarely seen an arsehole with such good intentions as your own. You're the arsehole if you don't tell him. He has a right to know. Make sure you tell him you love him and that this doesn't change anything. Tell him you panicked and that's why you lied, as is what I understand happened. But that you also know he has a right to know and that's why you are telling him. I know you're coming from a place of love, but you can't really shelter people from the truth. Now, what do you guys think of the situation? What do you think OP should do? Do you think they should keep it quiet for the rest of their lives, if possible? Or do you think they should just come out and be honest? I mean, he is his father in reality, let's face it. Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to vote on that poll in the description for Story 4. Once again, guys, thank you for being here today. You know I really, truly appreciate you. And hopefully, I will see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Much love. Goodbye.